Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, now we've woken up. Okay, so we're really privileged today. I mean, we have the most fantastic speakers. And I have to tell you, both of these speakers are favorite because when I went up to them and said, will you please come to the festival? Neither of them really knew what the festival was, but just to support us, and what Shonali and I do with all our team, they instantly said yes. Sometimes they still don't know why they said yes. And this was ages ago. This was years ago. And they keep on coming back to support. We've heard Swami Sarvapriyananda earlier today, and he's coming back on stage. So Swamiji on stage, and joined with Swamiji today is Rupert Spira. So, two of the greatest philosophers around that you can find, and we managed to put them on the same stage together. And they look at Vedanta. They look at Vedanta from slightly different perspectives. So I thought it would be really good to get that interaction between the two. They can look after themselves. I don't need to sit here and compare between them. The idea is that we start them off with an initial conversation. They say a few words about their perspective on Vedanta and why it is of such great importance for us all. So if you can start with that, especially in this day and age when people are really suffering so much, how can Vedanta possibly help? Slightly different perspective. They'll each speak in turn, and then after that, we can have, this is really meant for you. This is not very often that we get such great teachers on a face-to-face basis. So the idea is that there'll be a microphone here and then a long queue, all right? You get to ask your own question. Try and keep it within topic, right? Not what's the name of my cat. So try and keep it on topic. You ask the question, and please state your name and the person that you're directing the initial question to. Maybe both of them, in which case they'll both respond. And so I want to have an interactive dialogue with two of the finest teachers that we can possibly find. I welcome both of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Please go first.
Where should we start?
Statement about, as you said, about Vedanta, the importance of Vedanta, or
Okay.
just the central theme of it.
As you can tell, Swamiji and I have not only have we not rehearsed this, we have not discussed what we're going to. In fact, we thought that Ram was going to be on stage with us and ask us a question, but he's abandoned us. So. We're not quite sure what to do. So, let me start with why Vedanta? Why non-duality? What does it have to offer the world today? Our world culture, as it is today, is predicated on a fundamental assumption, the assumption of separation. We are all separate individuals, separate from each other, separate from nature, separate from the world, and separate from God, whatever we might conceive God to be. Now, the inevitable consequence of the paradigm of separation is sorrow on the inside and conflict on the outside. And no remedy that is based upon this paradigm of separation can ever really fundamentally address these two issues, unhappiness on the inside, conflict on the outside. the Vedantic teaching, the non-dual approach, suggests that only a fundamental shift, a fundamental change of attitude, a new paradigm, can address these two issues, sorrow and conflict. And that is the paradigm that the non-dual understanding suggests, that Vedanta suggests, is the paradigm of unity. That behind the apparent multiplicity and diversity of people, animals, and things, there is a single, unlimited, infinite, unchanging reality whose nature is consciousness, being, spirit, love. It goes by many names, of which everything that we experience objectively is an appearance. So we experience many different people, animals, and things. This appearance of multiplicity and diversity is how the one reality appears when it is viewed through our perceiving faculties. Now, the essence of the non-dual understanding or the Vedantic teaching is to recognize this single, unlimited, indivisible being that each of us essentially is, and that the world essentially is. This is the great recognition that lies at the heart of the Vedantic teaching, the recognition of the unity of being, the prior unity of being, of which everyone and everything is an appearance. And this unity, this recognition that we share our being beneath appearances, is not something abstract or philosophical or metaphysical. Everyone has experience of it. It's what we refer to as love. When you love someone, do you not feel that you are one with them? That's what the experience of love is. We appear to be two separate people, but when you love someone, you feel that at the deepest level you share your being with them. That's what the experience of love is, the recognition of that we share our being. The Vedantic teaching, the non-dual understanding, suggests you don't only share your being with your nearest and dearest, you share your being with everyone and everything. So this is the paradigm of unity, the essence of the non-dual understanding, which is the ultimate remedy for both the unhappiness we experience on the inside and the conflict that is experienced on the outside between individuals, communities, and nations.
You see, the problem I've faced it a couple of times online when we have had online conversations. The first time, I believe, we are doing an in-person event. The problem I've faced is, after he says something, only response I have is, like he said. No, but that's true. If we go back to the Upanishads, the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati. It is only when you see an other that there is fear. Yasya udaram kurute tasya bhayam bhavati. The Upanishad says, whoever sees the slightest difference here, a great fear comes upon that one. The existence of a separate other, duality. That's the beginning of samsara. I remember, talking about the utility of Vedanta, I remember at the beginning of the COVID crisis, somebody asked me a question that at this moment, remember I was in New York, which was sort of one of the epicenters. At the peak of the first wave, I remember around 1,000 persons were dying in that city alone every day from COVID. So, and nobody had the slightest idea how to cope with it. So somebody asked me at that point, Now, at this moment, we have to do philosophy? You know, the idea being, this is a real crisis. Now, you know, the idea in the mind is that Vedanta, philosophy, all of this is fine when you are at peace and in leisure, things are going nicely, and the weather is great, you're sitting in the Akasha tent, in the World Yoga, everything is hunky-dory, then you can do Vedanta. But when things get tough, when you're under pressure, you don't know if you can't go out, can you meet a person, can you shake hands, are you going to die if you shake hands with somebody? How can you do Vedanta then? And my response was, this is exactly the time we need Vedanta. I really, really meant it. Vedanta is meant, this non-dual philosophy, spiritual teaching, is meant for the crisis, is meant to be tested under fire. That when we are under anxiety, fear, disease, old age, death, strains in relationships, whether individual or communal, national, international, at that point, this oneness, do you feel it? Is it real for you? And can we act from that? That's the time when Vedanta becomes real for us. The original purpose of Vedanta was that, in Sanskrit, Ananda Prapti, Dukkha Nivritti, attainment of fulfillment of bliss and the cessation of sorrow, overcoming of sorrow. That was the point. What is the central teaching? Like he said, non-separation, the illusoriness of separation, the oneness of all existence. I'm reminded of Sarth, not a Vedantist, an existentialist across the channel, who said, hell is other people. So, hell is other people. It's true. Relationships, for example, that which can give you the greatest of happiness and joy and bliss can also has the power of giving you tremendous pain and suffering and anxiety and frustration. Relationships are one such thing, but probably that which gives us maximum happiness, fulfillment, and also maximal, even more suffering probably, and frustration and annoyance and irritation and anger and hatred. What is the way that something like a relationship could give you all of the good things, the fulfillment, the happiness, the oneness, and none of the downside of it, the frustration, annoyance, hatred? It is this deep sense of oneness with the other. Unconditionally, no matter what the other person is doing or saying, still unconditionally at the basal level, at the fundamental level, you feel one with them. So it never degenerates into outright hatred or dislike or, Swami Vivekananda, he met this great agnostic. He was a very well-known agnostic in late 19th century in the United States, Robert Ingersoll. He'd go around giving talks and all that. And when he met the Swami, he said to Swami Vivekananda, this was late 1890s, I don't believe in any of that religion and spirituality. What I believe in is this life. I believe in squeezing the orange of this life till I get the last drop from it. This is all. Why? Because this is all we know. God, heaven, spirituality, who knows? This is all we know. And I want to squeeze everything out of it till I get the last drop out of it. That's my philosophy. And it still is. Have you heard the new term? Gen Z, they call it YOLO, Y-O-L-O. You only live once, you only live once. Basically the same thing. So I want to squeeze the orange dry till I get every last drop out of what I have got right now, what my senses reveal to me. And Vivekananda said, I believe pretty much the same thing. And then he added, we only differ in our choice of fruit. For me, it would be the mango. And then he said, let me show you a better way of squeezing it till you get every little bit from it. I know I am one with all. Therefore, I have no fear. I know that I cannot die. Therefore, I have no fear. I am not in a hurry. Imagine the joy of loving all as God. And live your life in this way, and you get every last drop from the orange. You get 10,000-fold more. So this is the utility, the benefit of Vedanta. It is useful now, It is useful in a crisis. It is useful to anybody who begins to get it and tries to live from that perspective. And it is oneness, this essential teaching of Vedanta. But at this point, one way of kicking off a conversation is to be a bit of a devil's advocate. So let me play that side. If I could ask you a question. It's a basic question. The philosopher, the materialist or a scientist would say that, no, it's not one. You see, there is this material reality, which is the reality of the universe, matter, energy, time, space, that's real. And this oneness you're talking about, this consciousness, this underlying oneness, that's just a byproduct. It came much later in the order of evolution and so on and so forth. So the world really exists apart from us. They're all separate from us. Those guys, those people, that annoying neighbor, they're all other than us. So matter, energy, time, space, living beings, they all exist separately, differently. Even my body is a separate reality which I experience, and I can't deny that, and I have to suffer from this material world. The same thing might be said by just the average person, not a philosopher, not a materialist, not a scientist, just that it feels like this world exists apart from me, it's quite separate and independent apart from me. How do I generate a feeling of oneness here? I mean, how can I take oneness to be real in this, when we have this feeling?
I'd like to start by making a distinction between something that is unreal and something that is an illusion. Because these two ideas, the illusory nature of the world and the unreal nature of the world, are often conflated in Vedanta and considered to be the same. And this is something I struggled with for many years. In my early years, in my late teens and early 20s, when I started studying the classical Vedanta teaching, I would hear often that the world was an illusion. The world is not what it appears to be. I could cope with that. A materialist physicist would tell us that the world it's not what it appears to be. But then to be told that the world is unreal is a step too far. I could not accept the idea that what I experience as the world, friends, family, the world is not real. It seemed so obvious to me. It seems so obvious to me now that the world is real. So it took me many years to realize that these are two completely different statements. That the world is real, but it's not what it appears to be. In other words, the world is real, there is a reality, there is something real about the outside world. We all intuitively know this. We feel there is something real. This is not just unreal, non-existent. There's something real about the world. However, the way it appears to be is not really how it is. In other words, the world is both real and illusory. So what I would suggest is that the illusory nature of the world, its apparent multiplicity and diversity, it comes from the fact that we perceive it through the lens of perception. We experience it through the lens of sense perception, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. And seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling refracts the world, refracts the unity of being, and makes it appear as many things. So it is our faculty of perception that makes the one reality, the reality of the world, what the world truly is, in and of itself that makes it appear to us as a multiplicity and diversity of people and things. And it's very similar to what takes place in a dream at night. If you think of when you have a dream at night, your own mind, which is like a mini homogeneous field of consciousness, albeit a limited one, your own mind dreams a dreamed world within itself, but then you don't view that world directly from your bed where you are sleeping. In order to view the dreamed world, your own mind simultaneously imagines the dreamed world and localizes you as an apparently separate subject of experience in that world, from whose perspective you view what is in fact the inside of your own mind as an outside world. So from the point of view of the character in the dream that you seem to be, you're looking at, you don't know it's a dreamed world, you're looking at what you think is an outside world through your perceiving faculties. And from the perspective of the character you seem to be in the dream, you experience 10,000 things, 10,000 of discrete, independently existing objects and people. That's how it seems to be from the localized perspective of it that you take in your own dream. But then when you wake up, you realize that there weren't 10,000 things in your dream. There was just a single homogeneous field, namely your own mind, that was appearing as many things when viewed through the lens of perception from the point of view of the person in your dream. Well, what I would suggest, what the non-dual teaching suggests, is that the world as we know it, that it is an infinite consciousness that is, as it were, dreaming or imagining the world, but cannot view that world directly, because the infinite cannot perceive the finite directly. So in order to perceive the world, consciousness must localize itself within its own imagination. And that's what we are. Localizations of infinite consciousness through whose perceiving faculties consciousness sees itself as the world. So it's not that the world is unreal. The world is very real. It's just not real as a multiplicity and diversity of discrete objects and entities made out of matter. That's just how it appears from our perspective. But what is its reality? Its reality is, well, ultimately we shouldn't give it a name. But if we were to name it, we could say ultimately its reality is consciousness or being or spirit or love, you could call it.
Could we just add to that even in a dream, while the dream is going on, everything that we experience in the dream as a person in the dream, it feels real. But it's not real in itself. It's the reality of the dreamer, which is sort of, as you said, refracted
exactly.
and thrown out there.
But the character we seem to be in the dream, as you say, we feel that the world we're experiencing is real.
And separate.
Well, it is real. But it's not real in the way it appears to be. It's not really the streets of London that you're walking on. What is its reality, relatively speaking? The dreamer's mind. So the dreamed world does have a reality to it, but it's just not what it appears to be. This world, we all feel deeply that the world is real. If someone were to come along and say to you, this world is just, it's not real, it has no reality to it, something in us goes, no, that violates my deepest intuition that relationship, life, people, things, and have a reality to them, that the world is real, and it does exist independent of our finite minds, but it doesn't exist independent of the one universal mind or consciousness. So the world, as it were, just as the dream world borrows its apparent reality from the finite mind, so this world, from the dreamer's mind, this world borrows its apparent reality from the reality of infinite consciousness.
And that infinite consciousness would be us, would be you, I, at our deepest level.
Absolutely. If we, and this is where the theory of this really becomes experiential. If we if we trace back our experience, if we go through the layers of experience, discarding everything that is not essential to us. Our thoughts are obviously not essential to us, because when a thought disappears, we remain behind. So you discard your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, your sensations, your perceptions. If you trace your way back through the layers of your experience, discarding everything that is not essential to you, you arrive, and this is something you can do experientially. It's really the essence of meditation. You arrive at that element of yourself that cannot be discarded, that never disappears, that is not a thought, an emotion, a feeling, a memory, an activity, a relationship, and so on. It's just the pure, unqualified experience of being or being aware, and that is our. It's our essential reality. It's the essence of ourself. It's that aspect of ourself that never disappears and never changes.
Should we? It's a good point to open it up.
May I ask the first question?
Yes.
Is the microphone on?
No, it can be now. Not yet. Yes.
Some of you may realize I'm neither shy nor am I politically correct. So let me ask the first question. In Vedanta, we make a huge stress on the fact that it is a philosophy that allows us to explain everything that we are, both in this transactional world as individuals. There's the philosophy of karma, doctrine of karma, that explains how we effectively design ourselves in the next life, and the transmigrating soul finds another body, and that explains this transactional world that we find in, this individual. And at the same time, it talks about there's only one underlying reality, Brahman. So any philosophy that doesn't explain my real world, whether it's an apparent world or not, is not worth studying. That's what I love about Advaita Vedanta. So what would you say to those people who are saying, why are we having this doctrine of karma that explains about individual transactional world, and at the same time talk about Brahman, the one underlying reality? How do we tie these two together?
Yes. Should I
You
take
go
it?
first.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's actually a very fair question. When we talk about the unity of all existence, one consciousness which is appearing as the many, that's kind of cool. That's wonderful, especially when you hear that you are that one consciousness. And we go, I knew it. I knew as the ultimate reality of the universe. But then, when we come to the lived life, this life which we are living, we have a personal story and things happen to us. We do things, good and bad are experienced, and we see in our own lives and the lives of others so much variety, so much pain, so much struggle, and we seek for an explanation, not in terms of ultimate being or pure consciousness, that's wonderful, but in the terms of our lives as we live it. Can Vedanta say something? And that's where the doctrine of karma comes in. The doctrine of karma is something, it's not particularly unique to Advaita Vedanta. It's in fact all pervasive in Indian thought, in ancient Indian philosophy. You take Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, all schools of Vedanta, all non-Vedantic schools like Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, the Mimamsa schools, Kashmiri Shaivism, all of them. Take non-Hindu schools like Buddhism, Jainism, all of them, Sikhism, all of them sort of axiomatically accept the law of karma. And there is a good reason why they do that. Because if you look at it, the law of karma is nothing other than causality. Every cause has an effect, and every action has a consequence. That's all it is going to say. There is obviously the seen effect. If you feed somebody, that person's hunger is satisfied. That's obviously experienced, seen. But where this law of karma becomes more than just obvious fact, it becomes more than that, why it's part of religion rather than just common sense, is because they say there is an unseen effect. So you do something for somebody else, something good, something selfless, and it somehow comes back to you. It's the old, you sow, you reap what you sow. What we do, so we get back. So the law of karma extends it. Whatever we do has moral consequences also, apart from the physical consequences of it. So good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. These are words of Swami Vivekananda. Whoever wears a form wears a chain. The chain is our past karma, which has generated this form. And what we do now generates future forms. Now, how do you reconcile this with non-dual Brahman, Atman, which says there is only one radiant reality, the one universal consciousness, the one non-dual Atman or Brahman? Where is birth, death, where is body, where is action, where is individuality and all of that? One way would be the screen and the movie. The background screen remaining the same, we can play any number of movies on it. And the movies have their internal logic. They have a script. Each movie has a script. So the law of karma explains the script of the movie and why the movie exists at all. Why do we see it at all? The screen and the pictures on that, they're projected on the movie screen. That background screen is Brahman. The reality of it all is Brahman. But what plays out in the movie, that the law of karma is a very good explanation. Not the only explanation. There are other alternative explanations. One explanation could be that not quite the law of karma, but an all-powerful God who does everything out of just his its sweet will, whimsy. Or you could say none of that, just material nature, which somehow a big bang banged suddenly, and here we are. So there is a sequence again of cause and effect, which would deny the metaphysical side of the law of karma. Just the physical side of it would be accepted. So that's how you reconcile Atman, Brahman with the law of karma. Is it relevant? Very much so. In our day-to-day life, it's a pretty good guide that one has to be careful about what one does in this life, because we are going to get it back. We're getting it back in some form, in this life, in the future lives. Or that brings me also to the doctrine of reincarnation. I have found this is one thing that people push back upon in the West, and I fail to see why actually. Because the law of karma sort of inevitably leads to multiple lifetimes. If we are born with diversity, different genetic endowments, different prosperity levels, different communities, clearly tremendous diversity. And if everything is a consequence of karma, then this diversity at birth must have come from some past karma. And we clearly see what we do in this life. We say that the person has not got, such and such person was awful, did not get what he or she deserved. Well, then there are future lives. Or I did so much good. You see, it's often when I do good, I want the consequences of that. I'm not very worried about the naughty things I did. If I don't get the consequences, that's fine. But the other guy must be punished. And I must get my rewards for what I did, good stuff. That means there will be future existences. Present difference implies there was past existence, and present actions which have not yet given results clearly implies there will be future existences. I fail to see why multiple lives is difficult to accept. If you're an out-and-out materialist, I understand, because then I would believe that I didn't exist before birth, and I will not exist after death. So clearly there won't be multiple lifetimes. Just this body is all that I am. When it goes to pieces, I am gone. That's what a materialist believes. But if you're a Christian, if you're Jewish, if you belong to any kind of religion, every religion has one thing in common. Death is not the end. Birth may or may not be the beginning of things, but death is not the end. If death is the utter end of things, it's not a religion. It's materialism. So if you belong to any religion, believe in any religion, you do believe that you will exist in some form after death. And future lives are just a footnote to that post-mortem existence. So existing after death, multiple lives, should not be such a big stretch. I mean, people ask me about this again and again. In India, it isn't. It's sort of axiomatic. But in the West, many people ask me, do you really believe in that past lives and future lives? I said, yeah, and that makes sense to me. All right. We can open it up. Ram has done the icebreaker. Please come up here. Yes, please.
Can I add something
yes,
to
karma?
I'd just
please.
like to emphasize something that Swamiji touched on, and which is perhaps arguably the most important thing to understand about karma, is that at the deepest level, you are not subject to it. The screen is not affected by what takes place in the movie. The individual characters in the movie are all affected by what takes place in the movie. The law of karma affects the characters in the movie. But you, what you essentially are, the fact of being or being aware, is not affected by anything that takes place in your experience. And a way to try and make this experiential for you and not theoretical. Imagine you've just been born. Of course, you don't know you've just been born. You don't know that you are an infant. You don't know that you are a body or that you have a body. Let's presume that there are no painful sensations present. You're not experiencing thoughts. You have no emotions. Your eyes are not yet open. You know nothing of a world. It's silent around you. You're not having any objective experience. And yet you are having the experience of being, your fundamental experience. Before thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions have begun, you are just having the experience of being. This is your primary experience, the awareness of being. It's your original face, as they say in the Zen tradition. Now, fast forward through your life. Think of the innumerable experiences, just the pure experience of being. It has not yet been qualified by experience, by sensations, perceptions, thoughts, activities, relationships. It's just the pure, unqualified experience of being. Now, you go through your life and you experience innumerable experiences, thoughts, emotions, feelings, activities, relationships, and so on. You're on your deathbed, 80 years later. And you've long since lost your memory, your mind. Your mind is peaceful. Your body is comfortable. There are no sensations. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Your eyes are closed. Your family are not present. So, within the limits of the analogy, you are not having any objective experience. But you are having the experience of being. You're just aware of being, nothing else. Now, take these two samples of when you were just born, and 80 years later you're on your deathbed, you've lost all your faculties, and in both cases you are experiencing your essential self, that part of yourself that cannot be removed from you. Now imagine taking these two samples of your being and comparing them. They would be identical. Nothing that happened to you in your life will have tarnished or hurt or harmed or aged or stained or changed your being. It will be in exactly the same condition as it was the day you were born, and is in exactly the same condition that your being is in now. This very moment, behind, as it were, the content of your experience, your thoughts, feelings, sensations, and so on. So this thought experiment is helpful to enable you to feel experientially that what you are at the deepest level is not affected by the content of your experience in any way.
Before we go to you, I'll just add something to what Rupert said. I quoted Vivekananda. In all fairness, I should have completed that paragraph. It's exactly what Rupert said. Swami Vivekananda, all that long ago, it's a poem called The Song of the Sannyasi. And there, I was quoting the first 3 lines, but the last line is exactly what you said. Good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. whosoever wears a form wears the chain too. That's the law of karma. And at this point, one might think, if that's inevitable, what can Vedanta do? Then the next line he says, but far beyond name and form is Atman ever free. No, exactly. Thou art that sannyasi bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om.
That's it. That's exactly it.
That's exactly it. Please come.
Beautiful.
Hi. Testing?
Yes.
Testing. Okay, I need to...
You can lift it up a little bit, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, that'll help.
Yes.
Thanks. My question concerns music, dance, and boxing. To create the context around that, I want to borrow a metaphor you used earlier, which is a cup and water. If I discern my awareness from thoughts, I separate the water, which is awareness, out of the cup of thoughts. So when with music or dance or boxing, I'm just going to pick boxing, when I strike the bag, I drop into a repetition, 1, 2. I can do the same with dance, whatever it is. There's a 1, 2, a melody, a rhythm. And that brings me to a certain space. So my question is, which is the water and which is the cup? Am I the water or is the rhythm the water?
Would you like to take that? One reason I want a response from Rupert is he's an artist. I don't know how many of you know. He is actually a very well-known, he makes pottery.
You are the water. The rhythm is the cup. The rhythm is your objective experience. But some objective experiences have the capacity to emphasize the apparent multiplicity and diversity of things. In other words, they reinforce the illusory nature of the world. There is another category of artists, of objects, and I would include, this is really what art is. And I would include not just the visual arts, dance, music, and so on. There's another category of objects which have, you could almost say it was a magical quality to cut through the illusory nature of things and to take you to reality. It's what the filmmaker Pasolini said of his films. I want to restore to reality its original sacred significance. The painter Paul Cézanne said, when people look at my paintings, I want to give them a taste of nature's eternity. Well, these are rare statements of artists who said explicitly what they wanted their art to do. They didn't want, in Cézanne's case, he didn't want to, when he was painting Mont Saint-Victoire, he didn't want to reinforce the idea that the painting, that the mountain is a material object separate from yourself. On the contrary, he wanted to give people a taste of nature's eternity, give people a taste of that which is eternal in nature, beyond, or more accurately, prior to its changing names and forms. And this is the purpose, or the ultimate purpose of art. Now, for you individually, you have a particular, from what I understand from your question, you have a particular affinity with rhythm. You didn't describe going to a gallery and looking at a Paul Cézanne painting or in music, dance, boxing. These are rhythmical activities, and for you, the rhythm has the power to take you away from the illusory appearance of the world and give you a taste of your true nature. So for you, these activities have this almost magical quality of taking you through the illusion of separation and to give you what Cézanne would call a taste of nature's eternity, a taste of that which truly is. So the rhythm is the cup, it's the form, but it's a form that has a particular power, and this is the power of art. It has a power to not reinforce the illusion of separation, but to dissolve it and to give you a taste of reality.
Is there any terminology in Vedanta that particularly names this?
If I can add something to supplement what Rupert just said. What you said reminded me of this term called flow states. Those who have heard of the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he passed away a couple of years ago. He dedicated all his life. I mean, he first became interested in when do we feel the most alive, the most fulfilled, the best experiences of our lives, what Maslow called the peak state and so on. And he found that it is in moments of utter absorption, in concentration, in artistic endeavor most often, but also in sports, in many kinds of endeavor. He found that the mind, the quality of the mind, it attains a level of sustained concentration on a task which is enriching. And he called it a flow state because a conductor just said about the music, it just flows at that moment. And it's the artist, the performer, the sportsman, they know it's really going well. And all of them, they recognize such states. Now, in his book Flow, you will find, I'm coming to a question, he says, I have gone through the literatures of the world to recognize these flow states in different civilizations, in different philosophies. And he says the best manual of attaining these flow states is an ancient Indian text called the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And he has a whole page in that book on what the Yoga Sutras are. And it is for him, who's been talking about flow all his life. He says this is just someone thousands of years ago, they understood this idea of flow and how to achieve it, of course for philosophical purposes, spiritual purposes. There is a certain state of the mind which is very conducive to spirituality, just like Rupert said. That's why in Vedanta, this care of the mind, purification of the mind, to attain what are called, this is the answer to your question, sattvic states of mind, which is a luminous state of the mind where enlightenment is most possible. This underlying one consciousness which we are, it's most easily evident, let us say. I won't say grasped or caught. It's not objectified. It becomes very clear. In agitated states of mind, which are called rajasic, it's like the water which is disturbed. So the reflection of the face is there, but it's utterly broken up. In inert or polluted states of the mind, darkened states of the mind called tamasic, nothing is very well reflected at all. Swami Vivekananda, whom I just quoted, he also says, all that we can do is polish the mirror. This polished mirror, flow states of the mind, certain states of peak artistic experience are very close to it. Just in closing, I'll add, I remember listening to a talk by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he said his lifelong endeavor, how he was set on this path, and there is a Vedantic echo to this. He said he was a teenager in post-war Vienna. And he said one afternoon he had just the option of either going to a movie or there was a lecture. And he had no money. The movie required money, so lecture was free. So he went to the lecture. And this person, he talked about psychology, about the meaning of human life, about the significance of events in our lives, in the world, in our inner life. He says, I was hooked, I was caught, and it set me on this lifelong quest to discover the meaning of life and the best moments in life. Who was the speaker? Carl Jung. So Jung, of course, had a great resonance with Vedanta. But anyway, one word answer to your question, sattvic states of mind.
Is that sattva as in bodhisattva?
The same word, but in Buddhism, bodhisattva it's very close. In Buddhism, a sentient being would also be called a sattva. So a bodhisattva is a spiritual seeker, an advanced spiritual seeker who has taken the vows of becoming enlightened and taking everybody else to enlightenment. But sattva there, yes, it does refer to the sentient part of that being. Yeah.
Right, great. Sattva.
Sattva. It's a Sankhyan term. It's older than Buddhism, actually. 3 qualities. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva is the light, luminous, balance, alertness, all of that. Questions, I mean, like a cluster of ideas about luminosity, lightness, brightness, purity. Rajas is dynamism, energy, ambition, disturbance, agitation. Tamas is darkness, heaviness, sleep, laziness. So these three qualities. The terms are from the Sankhya philosophy.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskaram. My name is Janathan, and thank you very much for this opportunity to ask this question. Okay. Hi. My name is Janathan, and thank you very much for this opportunity to ask this question. Swami, I've been following your teaching for a number of years, and I've found all the talks you've done, especially on the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic texts, very useful to systematically study Vedanta. My question is about practically applying what I've been studying. And I'm trying to now do that, in my day-to-day life. And to be honest, I find it both exciting and terrifying. Because it seems to me, the more I start applying it, it seems to me you need to start making decisions about your life to plan things so that you can get the time and the space to spend more and more time applying this. And I do have a family and responsibilities. So assuming you can take care of your responsibilities and get to a position where you can spend more time applying it, it seems to me as you kind of go down this path, the inevitable path it leads to is you start making more and more difficult decisions about your life in terms of the relationships and in terms of the direction you're heading in and in terms of the comforts you have and giving up a lot of things which are there which you would normally think of as security blankets for yourself, including possessions and money and things like that. So my question to both of you is how did you handle these difficult decisions? Because you've clearly committed to this path and gone all in, if I can use that word. So how did you handle those difficult decisions, and how did you get the courage to do that?
Oh, I became a monk. No, but
I did the opposite.
But let me just add a little bit here. The Vedanta was taught by Krishna to Arjuna in a battlefield, and that's for a reason. Not in a monastery, not even in the yoga festival under the Akasha tent, but in a battlefield. In the midst of the battlefield of life with responsibilities, pressures, contradictions. Notice the language that you used. The language of freeing up a space for practice. I'll take care of my responsibilities. I'll earn a good living and provide for my family, but now leave me alone. I want to practice Vedanta here. It's not bad in itself. I'll circle back to that, but let me point out that field of responsibilities, that job, that family, that community, our own personal health, care of the body, and so on, this is the battlefield in which Vedanta really needs to be practiced. This is where once we begin to get a sense of, I am this limitless consciousness, and yet the world appears to me, the body appears to me, people appear to me. Yes, it is all underlying one consciousness which I am. Now, in this embodiment, how do I live? What do I think? What do I say? How do I reduce the distance, the gap between my new understanding of Vedanta and my perceived life? This is the practice of Vedanta. It is practiced in the midst of, whether it's in a family or in an ashram, or indeed, if you're a hermit living on the top of the Himalayas, you still have to face hunger and cold and hardship. So Vedanta will help you there. And ultimately, an advanced practice is always to erase the artificial boundary between practice and life. So what is in meditation? Can I take it into life, the moment, the transition is, the boundary is when I open my eyes. And then, does that continue? And then I take it out into the family, into the job, when I'm driving down the street, especially when another guy cuts me off. Does that continue? It should continue. That's what Vedanta claims. The best place to practice Vedanta is ultimately life itself. That's the core point I want to make. But yes, always, always useful to have a separate time and space for practice. A time to come to a retreat like this, a time, fixed time for meditation when you are left alone. You leave the world alone and the world leaves you alone. A time for reflective study. So, as much as possible, make time for your own private spiritual practices. But let us remember, ultimately it has to be all the time. Practice and life should seamlessly meld into each other.
Yes, I don't think I can add to that. There was a teacher, some of you may be aware of him, Atmananda Krishna Menon. He was a contemporary of Ramana Maharshi and the Sagadatta. Some of you may have heard of them. Somebody once, he was a very well-known direct path teacher in the middle of the last century. Somebody asked him once, what are the best circumstances for spiritual practice? He said, the police force or the military? He happened to be a police officer, so he was prejudiced. But what he was saying was exactly as what Swami was saying. If your peace is only available in perfect circumstances, when your children are not bothering you and there are no demands from work, and then it's not real peace. It's not imperturbable peace. If your joy is dependent on your circumstances, it's not real joy. It's not causeless joy. So really, the best possible place to be exploring these matters is I always recommend to people a full-time job, marriage, and 2 children. It's my version of Atmananda Krishna Menon's military or police force. I don't mean that literally, but the full life in the world. And I know Swamiji is a monk. I have great respect for the life, for the calling of a monk. So I'm not making any comment about that. But for the vast majority of us, this understanding, the exploration of this understanding, the practice of it is completely compatible with a full, active, engaged life in the world, because it's the world that tests us, that tests our imperturbable peace. Is it really imperturbable peace? Is it really causeless joy? Or does it depend on our circumstances and our possessions and so on? So everyday life is the place to explore these matters. Not only that, because this is not just about exploring these matters, it's about expressing them. We have, I would suggest, 2 purposes in life. One, to explore our true nature, but then the second purpose, to take the fruits of that exploration out into the world and to share it in our own individual, unique ways with humanity. And the best place to do that is in with your family, in your work, with your colleagues, in your neighborhood, and so on.
Thank you very much.
Hello. I have a question about karma. So my understanding very basically of the law of karma is obviously there's the action and then there's the consequence, which may be in this life and maybe in another life. But I'm wondering about the intention. So I could, for example, I could help someone because I want to help them, I want to ease their suffering, and maybe I'll feel good and maybe I'll have good karma. But I could also do the same action. I could help them because I don't really care about them, but I want other people to think I'm a good person and I want to have good karma for me without caring, but I do the same action. So in terms of the law of karma, as your understanding, is there a difference when it comes to the intention behind the action?
Absolutely. So the effects of karma are threefold. One is the effect on the world. You do good to somebody, give them money or feed them a homeless, a soup kitchen or something. That's an actual action which does something to somebody in the world. That's one part of the karma. The second effect of karma is on our mind. The karma will condition our minds. So the internal intention will always determine what final result it has on the mind. And there will come in whether I'm doing the karma for applause, for feeling good about myself, or out of genuine sympathy for the other, or out of a sense of duty, or out of this is my karma yoga, this is a practice that I'm doing. Any of these intentions, and they'll have different results on my mind. And the third one, which is what they call the unseen, that's the religious component of it, and that's the most important part of it, the one which circles back to you and comes back later on. That will also be affected by the intention with which we did the karma. Go back to the Bible. There Jesus says that let the left hand not know what the right hand does. I mean, when you're giving with the right hand, even the left hand should not. It should be done in secret. When you do good acts done in secret, because he says what is done in secret, God sees that. And those who do it in public and make a big deal about, say they're fasting, he gives the example of fasting, but also it could be giving to others. He says, I tell you, they have their reward. They will get what they want. People will applaud for them. That means the spiritual benefit of that will be much less. That's it.
Thank you, that makes a lot of sense.
Hello, Swamiji. Hi, Rupert. My name is Uma. Okay, we haven't planned, but I think maybe the question follows with the theme of...
Speak closer to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it better?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Uma. We haven't planned, but I think the question follows in a sequence of things. So, as I'm from India, obviously, many can understand. So, we do spiritually grow up. We have been told by God, so we believe in God. For the fortunes, for the blessings, we thank God. For the misfortunes, we say karma, and then we move on. So, I've seen in my life all the blessings and the misfortunes also. But my question, I would say that I'm more like dualism, basically started with that, more believing God and we are human and God bless us. And then 3 years back, I would say, I've been introduced to Advaita and started preaching because of mostly Swamiji, and I used to listen to Rupert. My question is more around, I lost my mom a year back, and when grieving happens and mind take over that, and doesn't allow you to follow the path of Advaita. How do you balance it? And especially when it's unbearable grief, the mind says, no, stop it. It doesn't make sense because it feels the pain. You can say the soul doesn't feel the pain or the consciousness is one, but the mind and body is the one that feels the pain. And I'm pretty sure you would have gone through grief in some more show. How do you really believe when you reach the rock bottom, there is really a consciousness, and that can show up. If question makes sense.
Yeah.
When griefs take over and the mind says, stop. I don't think so. These are all theoretical philosophies. But if your body and mind, then ultimately that wins.
Yes. Can I respond to that? Sure. Yeah. I also lost my mother a year ago, so I feel for you. I was very close to my mother. She used to come to all my retreats and sit in the front row and ask questions. It was very sweet, and she introduced me to the non-dual teaching 50 years ago. In fact, when a friend of mine asked me how come I had this great love of truth, I told him that when I was 15, my mother had introduced me to the classical teaching of Advaita Vedanta, and he paused for a while, and then he said, how beautiful, the mother handing her son back to God. So I felt that my mother did hand me back to God, and we had this very, very close relationship. So I know what you're experiencing. I feel it. I miss my mother every day. But when I go to that feeling of missing her, the grief, what is that feeling really? It's love. If you didn't love your mother, you would not feel grief. Your grief arises on account of your love. And love is the deeper aspect of your grief. The grief rises as an expression of love. And what is that love? It's the feeling that you share your being with your mother. That feeling of love that you used to have and still have with your mother is the deep felt sense that at the deepest level, you are the same being. Your being is her being. There's one being. Yes, two bodies, two minds, but underneath that or behind that, you share your being. In other words, your mother is your very own being. She's not left you. She's come closer to you. She lives in you as your very own self. And you can find your mother there. You can, if you go deeply into the felt sense of being, that is who your mother is. And that recognition that the being that she essentially is and the being that you essentially are the same being, that is the experience of love. So I feel this now that, although of course when I say I miss my mother, I miss being able to see her and talk with her and everything, but actually when she passed away a year ago, I felt that she came closer. And now I just feel she's with me as my very own self all the time. And you can feel that about your mother.
I agree completely. I agree completely, the point of view. It's more around then, it's a more mind and the body that relates to it.
It's natural. At the level of the mind and the body to feel grief, don't try to spiritualize that feeling away and say, oh, I shouldn't feel this. It's not in line with Vedanta. Don't just let the body and mind go through the grieving process. It's natural. Just suffer it, bear it. It's natural. It will slowly pass, and you'll just be left with a feeling of love in your heart, which is your mother's presence.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you want to add anything.
Okay. Yes. I was just reminded of 3 responses to what you said. One was, if you go very far back, the Buddha, when this lady comes up to her who has lost a little child and grieving, can't let go, doesn't want to bury the child or cremate the child, and goes to the Buddha, you're a great master, enlightened master. He would just say that he'll come alive, definitely come alive. And the Buddha finally tells her that, all right, go and bring me a handful of mustard seed from a house, but the only condition is that death has not touched that house. Nobody in that household has ever died. And without thinking, she says, oh, that's very easy. And she goes around the city, going from household to household and asking for a mustard oil, and then asking, did anybody die in this house, by the way? And somebody said, yes, my uncle died or my grandparents died. And at the end of the day, when she comes back without the mustard seed and she realizes the inevitability of death, that as Vivekananda said, we all die. Emperors die and the poor die, learned die and the ignorant die, saints die and sinners die. Death comes for all of us. It's absolutely inevitable. That's one response, the Buddha's response. And that calmed the mind of the grieving mother. And actually I think she became a nun afterwards. Second response by Jesus. When Lazarus is lying dead and the sisters say, please save my brother. And he says, Lazarus, come forth, and Lazarus comes and walks. Now, the inner message there is, death is not the ultimate truth. There is immortality. The one you think who has passed away still exists. That's how I choose to interpret it. Well, it's no use to us if only Lazarus came out of the grave, and what about the rest of us? No, it is true for everybody. That ultimately death is also not true. That the being which Rupert was speaking about, the one awareness which we are, that is immortal. Is never born, never going to die. That's what your mother is, immortal, still exists, absolutely. At the level of the sentient being, the Jivatma going on its spiritual journey, and at the ultimate level of awareness, being, Brahman, as Rupert said, I and my mother, I feel closer now, because we are that one being. That's the second response. the immortality of the soul. And the third one, Ma Sharada Devi, whom we call the Holy Mother, she was living in the village, a small rural village, rural area in Bengal in those days, Jairambati. And a neighbor, a widow, she lost her only relative in the world, her young son. It's terrible for a widow at that time. No support in society, husband's gone, no relatives, and only support was that young man who's dead now. So she comes and speaks to Sharada Devi, and the people in the household were alarmed and taken aback when they heard wailing, crying, not from the woman, from Sharada Devi. She wept so much. She literally mirrored, she felt the grief of that, the mother, the grieving mother. She, just like Rupert said, not denying it, not saying, oh, it's an appearance in the mind, I am pure consciousness. That will not work, and that's a kind of bypassing. It is real, as you said, at the body level, at the mind level, that grief is real. And again, the woman was, in this case also, the woman was calm because she found somebody who literally felt exactly as she felt. She understood, somebody on my side who understands me thoroughly and is in complete sympathy with me and yet points me to the higher truth. So these three responses, accepting the grief as it is, it's real and it's natural, and stay with it. Don't deny it, don't try to overcome it. Second, your mother is not dead, nor are we ever going to die. The real nature, it always continues, always has been and will continue. And third, the actual physical death, it's inevitable. Vivekananda says it's like the dropping of a hair or a piece of nail from your. It is like nothing to this immortal being which you are. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Lalit Parekh, and first of all, my heartfelt gratitude and thank you to both of you for sharing these thoughts. I have two questions, one from the the initial part of the discussion, one from the latter half. I'll start with the second one first, and this is kind of slightly linked to the talk this morning as well, Swamiji. The example, Rupert, you gave about, and wonderful example, I really could relate into it. You talked about dream, when we are in dream state, our mind projecting things and we feel it's real and we are one of the characters and we kind of feeling it as if it's real, and then you wake up. And once you wake up, something tells your mind, well, actually it was a dream, it was just not real. And I would like to assume that and believe that is Brahman, because that's me, and I consider myself as different from mind, let's say. But when we go to the next level, which you talked about, Rupert, where consciousness is actually, let's say, projecting this whole world that we live in, and the day you understand that this is nothing but actually consciousness and it's a projection of that, who tells consciousness or Brahman that actually it's your projection? Conceptually, I can understand and say, right, this is what it is, you believe in it. But in practical sense, how do I know, or when do I know that actually I know it now, that this is just a projection? How do you experience it? You gave the example of two experiences, when you're born and when you're on your deathbed. Two data points, but can you have a data point in between as well as a person?
Yes, that data point is now. The data point in between is now. If you can you say from your experience, I am now? Is it true of your experience now? Just the simple statement, I am. Yeah. Now, to what experience do you refer that enables you to say that?
This moment, I'm in this moment, that's...
Yes, but you don't refer to your thoughts,
no,
and as a result say, I am. You don't refer to the sight of this tent, and as a result of that experience say, I am. But you do say I am as a result of an experience that you are currently having. What experience is that?
Currently, I'm having that conversation with you, and that's...
No, you don't refer to your experience. You don't refer to this conversation and infer from that, I am. You go to an experience, and it's from that experience that you are able to say with absolute certainty, I am. What is that experience?
It's difficult to say.
You're right, it is difficult to say. It's very difficult to say. It's kind of easy and difficult, but I'm putting you on the spot, but you are certain that you are, yes?
Yes.
When you say I
I
am.
believe so, yes.
No, you don't believe so. You believe all sorts of things about yourself, but you know beyond any shadow of a doubt that you are, even if the Buddha was here. And sorry, what's your name again?
Lalit.
Lalit, and said, Lalit, I'm sorry, you are not. You would say, I'm sorry, Your Highness, but I know that I am. Your own certainty of your own being overrides the highest authority. In other words, your own certainty is the highest authority. You don't guess that you are. You haven't read that you are. You didn't learn it from a YouTube clip or from a spiritual teacher. You know from your intimate, direct, current experience. And from that experience you say, I am. I know that I am. What is that experience?
Just my being.
Perfect. Perfect. It's just the experience of being. Not the experience of thinking, perceiving, remembering, feeling, relating. Just the pure experience of being. Now, it's another difficult question, but I can see you're up for it. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to take this out of the realm of ideas and philosophy. I want to make it clear to you that what we're both saying is something very simple and can be expressed in philosophical terms, but is actually our own intimate, direct, current experience. That's why I'm doing this experiment with you. Now, you can say for certain, I am, because you are having the experience of being. Now, using words as best you can, try to describe the experience of being. If you were to describe its qualities, if we can call it qualities, try to describe it to us.
If I take away all the thoughts, experiences,
exactly.
everything,
Yes.
it's probably just peace. I mean, I'm just
Perfect.
at peace.
Beautiful. Peace. There's no disturbance there, because a disturbance would be a disturbance of your thoughts,
Yes.
or your feelings, or peace.
Yes.
Perfect. What else can you say about it?
Say almost in equilibrium in terms of
Yes.
no very stable state, nothing changing me.
Unchanging.
Unchanging.
Perfect. Anything else? Can I ask you a few questions
Yes.
about it? Does it have an age?
No.
Does it have a gender?
No.
Does it have a nationality?
No.
And does it lack anything?
No.
Does it have a limit?
No. You cannot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have, in this experiment, you have gone to your true nature, your essential nature, that aspect of yourself that is prior to the content of your experience, thoughts, feelings. And from your, and we could all tell that in the pauses after my questions, you were not referring to a teacher or a book or a video. You were going to the experience of being, and you were trying to describe it. It's the actual qualities that you experienced in your being. You said it's peaceful, inherently peaceful, a peace that is not derived from the content of experience. It is referred to in the Christian tradition as the peace that passeth understanding, the peace that has nothing to do with what you are or are not experiencing. It's the peace that is your nature, that doesn't depend on experience. You said it has no age, it has no gender, it has no, you didn't say this, but I asked you about a limit. It has no size, it has no shape. In other words, it's infinite, it's not finite, it has no finite dimensions. You were describing, as best you could, the unlimited or infinite nature and the inherently peaceful nature of your being. And then I asked you one more question. Does it lack anything? And you said no. What's the common name, the street name for the absence of lack, or the feeling of
Abundance.
Abundance, or even more common than that?
Complete.
A little bit more emotional, a little bit more feeling. What is the common name for the feeling of the
Love.
absence of lack?
Love.
Happiness.
Happiness.
Happiness. When you feel happy, you feel no lack. You feel full, complete, sufficient. And so you were literally tasting your being, and you were tasting its inherently peaceful, joyful, happy nature. That's what it's meant in the Vedantic tradition, where it says that peace or happiness are the nature of your being. That's what the word ananda means, which is sometimes misleadingly translated as bliss, because in the English language, bliss is a temporary and heightened state of the mind. Ananda means this causeless joy that's your nature, which is always there, because it is the nature of your being. Whatever you may be experiencing, your thoughts, your feelings, your circumstances, it's always there simply because it's your nature, and it is available to you just by doing the experiment that you've just done. At any moment in your life, you could pause, whatever you're experiencing, however difficult life may be, you could pause and do this experiment very quickly. We've taken 5 minutes to do it, but you can do it in 2 or 3 seconds. And you can just go straight back to your true nature and taste its innate peace. That you now know experientially, not just philosophically, but you know experientially the direct path, direct access to your inherently peaceful nature. That is the most valuable thing anybody can know.
Amazing. Thank you. Really. Yeah, it'll stay with me forever now, I think, given the second question I actually had was at the start when you talked about oneness and the feeling of love towards, if you don't consider separation, everyone is same, and you have that undivided love. In real life, and I was having this discussion with one of my friends who is not very much into Vedanta. We were just having a conversation, and I was telling him about the concept of Vedanta. As much as I understand, I don't know any much about it, but whatever I knew, I was trying to tell him. And he said, well, conceptually, it's great. It's amazing. Love and peace and everything is really nice. But when it comes to practical scenario, corporate world or everything else, that's when you will find that it will be a one-way street, because you might be trying this with all your right intent and your feelings towards it and saying, well, actually, I want to do the right thing and this is how I'm going to be. But you're going ahead with the assumption that everyone else will or is going to follow, but will they? And in this world, if you're going to do that, then it can bring you back. And I think someone else asked a similar question earlier, which is how do you deal with that conflict?
Can I respond to that? I'm just going to, I don't mean to
No.
hog the mic, but I want to carry on in the same vein as our previous conversation. That imagine that during our conversation, our previous conversation, where I was asking you about the nature of your being, imagine that everyone in this room was doing the same experiment with us, and I imagine that most of you probably were going to the experience that enables you to say for certain, I am, and tasting its qualities. Now imagine that we were all doing the same experience. Do you agree that everyone, as long as they understood the experiment, everyone would have come to the same conclusion that you came to about their being? If I'd asked you about your thoughts, there would have been 200 different thoughts. If I'd asked you about your sensations or your feeling, there would have been 200 different. But I was asking you about your being, about the nature of your being prior to experience. So if everyone had done that experiment with us, they would have come to exactly the same conclusion, experiential conclusion, about their own nature. In other words, they would have felt that they were exactly the same pure, aware being that you are. Now, if you not only understand that, but feel that about everybody you meet, literally, that the first thing you know about them is not the way they appear, the way they behave, how they think, what their history is, and so on. You would know all those things, but those are all secondary facts you know about them. If the first thing you know about anyone is that they are exactly the same being that you are, and therefore you love them in exactly the same way that you love yourself. You love yourself, yeah? So you love them because they are the same being. Imagine, irrespective of how they appear, how they think, how they behave, what their political views are, and so on. Imagine if that's the first thing you know about anyone, and that knowledge, that felt knowledge, because it's a feeling, you feel it, that if that informed the way you related with them, doesn't mean that you'll necessarily agree with them. You may still have different political opinions. You may still, you will definitely have different thoughts, feelings, and so on. But imagine if your relationship with them was informed primarily by this felt understanding that at the deepest level you are the same identical being. And imagine if our politicians knew this. Imagine if the first people that study politics or economics at university, imagine that the first class they go to, the fundamental principle of politics, was this understanding that you share your being with everyone. Imagine if that single, simple, experiential understanding was the foundation of our politics. What kind of a world, what kind of relationships we would have, what kind of a world we would live in. If our relationships with people were informed by this simple, felt, experiential understanding. And you can do that in your life. Just having done this experiment, just have the intention now, anyone you meet, whether you like them or not, is irrelevant. In this understanding, we're not called to like everyone, but we are called to love everyone. Whether we like someone or not depends upon our conditioning, the extent to which our minds and bodies synchronize with each other. But love has got nothing to do with whether we like someone or agree with them. Love is the felt sense of our shared being. So make it your intention now that whenever you have any interaction with anyone, the first thing to know and feel about that person is that you share your being with them and allow that felt understanding to inform your conversation and your behavior with them.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to say something?
I was thinking when you asked the second question, I said, after that, one more question? Are there any questions? But I'm glad you asked that question. I was just thinking, I don't know if they're recording this, but this sequence of the two questions you asked and Rupert's answer to that is a complete teaching in itself. Of the essential teaching and its practical application in life, the life post-realization. Yes. A minor footnote, person might say, yes, but it will never happen. All the politicians will never become enlightened. They will never share all of this. All of them will not come to this kind of a realization. The world will continue more or less as it is. However, even then, what he just said does not lose even an inch of its validity, because from your perspective, as the one who knows, as the one who's enlightened, your problems are solved forever. That problem-free being, in the midst of that corporate culture, it would still be that being. And you would also see that it's the same problem-free being in everybody. So from your perspective, your problems are solved. And not only that, from your perspective, the more you live this, the more you'll be a center of peace and harmony and blessings, not only for yourself, but for everybody around you. That's the minimum you can expect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both of you.
Hello, gents. My name's Fraser. My question's sort of been answered by the last one. It was a question on love. I work in a children's residential with highly traumatized kids with interesting behaviours. And often I can leave work with hate in my heart and dislike for the kids. But I love my job and I really want to love the kids more. So my question was how to live the non-dual understanding, how to love the kids more, how to be more present with them and how to just help them as much as I can. That was my question.
I think it's a good follow-on to the last one.
Fraser. Really, that the how-to question is very difficult. Really, love brings with it its own methodology. If you feel, as I've no doubt you do with these children, that your fundamental feeling towards them is that you share their being with them. Your being and their being is the same being. You feel their joy as your own joy. You feel their sorrow as their own. You feel their sorrow as your own sorrow. Then that will give you the what you need moment by moment. There's no prescription. You have to, in fact, you have to be free of all methodology, all how-tos. Once you feel that you share your being with everyone, you don't need a how-to. Somebody once asked St. Augustine about this. And he just said, love and do whatever you want. The Ten Commandments are for people that don't understand this. Okay, until you understand this, behave like this. But when you understand and you feel, when I say understand, I mean you feel and understand that you are the other, you share your being with everyone, then that then becomes the guiding principle with your life. You love and do whatever you want, as long as whatever you want is consistent with that love. And then you don't need a how-to. You might very gently reprimand one child, if appropriate, but you may be very permissive with another child who does the same thing. Because you intuitively feel that one child needed some boundaries, but the other child needed more freedom. So if there was a how-to, you would have treated the two children the same way. So you really have to be free of the how-to. Right? Just trust that if you feel this love, you obviously do, it's why you do the beautiful work that you do, that will give you the freedom, the spontaneity, the capacity to tailor your felt understanding moment by moment to each individual child, and that will give you a very wide repertoire of means that will be uniquely tailored to each individual. And that goes not only for children, it goes for your life in general.
I'll add just one thing to that, a little practical suggestion. along with taking care of those kids, take care of yourself. Often caregivers in these situations get worn out. Techniques, as Rupert said, they really don't count for much. Very soon you find they're not working, especially in difficult circumstances. What do I do? How do I do it? Well, first and foremost, you're already doing it. In the midst of those, and you're trying your best, so you're already doing it. You're already practicing. That's spiritual work. In the Gita, Krishna said, that yogi is the best of yogis who feels the sorrows of others as one's own sorrows and the joys of others as one's own joys. That basically reflects what is called the golden rule of ethics in every religion, to treat others as you would have them treat you. How do I treat the kids? The way I would expect them to treat me. Now, non-duality basically gives us the reason why and the ground for doing that. Why should I treat somebody else the way I treat myself? When I can get away with treating others badly, for example, as long as I treat myself right. That's the inner instinct for us. That's what leads us to do selfish stuff, and selfishness often leads to immorality and wrong things. Now, Advaita Vedanta, non-duality, comes in there and says, aha, just a minute, what did you say? Why should I treat others like myself? Well, because the others are not really others. They are you. If we understand what our true self is, right now we do not know what we are. The more we understand ourselves as this unlimited being, we see the others are me, they are us. And therefore, yes, continue to treat yourself right. It's just that the self has now expanded to mean everybody else. And then you see the golden rule of all religions, of all ethics, follows automatically from this. To treat the joys and sorrows of others as one's own joys and sorrows. And Krishna says, that's the best of yogis.
Thank you, gents.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Just pull it down a little bit. Yeah, just hold on.
Okay. Namaste. My name is Nitya Mukta. I have a similar question following the same theme. So my question is around practice of being in day-to-day life. Right now it seems to be very compartmentalized. Being able to access awareness when there is no action, probably while one is praying or at the seat of meditation, or the experiment that you just did right now. I was sitting there and trying to understand. But when there's action happening, like in the midst of work, things are happening, I'm talking right now, I feel that I'm not aware, and it's not second nature to me. So how does one practice this art of being aware?
Should I?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a classic question. I'm very happy with such questions because I know the answer. Those are the best questions. Yeah. But this is very important. That being which you intuited when Rupert led us through that inquiry, that being, other than thoughts, other than feelings, other than memories, other than actions, other than sensations, you still are. You can't deny your own existence. And as the gentleman said, that being is free of problems. It does not have any wants. It is fulfilled. It does not have any limits. It is one being. Now that being, in the middle of actions, right now when you're speaking or talking or moving around, and you're not at all thinking of Vedanta and non-duality, clearly your mind is not thinking about non-duality. Clearly your mind is not thinking that I am one being, all blissed out, fulfilled. You're not thinking that at all. Does that being still exist? When you're walking, when you're talking, when you're engrossed in a movie, that being is still there, exactly the same. In the middle of actions, tough actions, work, when you're exhausted, no time, no interest in non-duality or Vedanta, that being is still there. You are still that being, even when you are not attending to it. then whose question is this? This question you asked. How do I continue to be that being, practice being the being? The being is still there. Nothing has to be practiced because it's not a product of practice. It's not a product of effort. It's not a product. Your mind will, I know what the question is. Yes, but I'm not aware of it. I'm not getting the benefits from it. Notice carefully, this is a question of the mind. It's not a question of the being. The mind said, I got that idea of the cool, non-dual being, which Rupert pointed out. That's really great. But what happens when I'm not thinking about it? I've lost it. The mind has lost, its attention is diverted to the world. The being is exactly the same. You are the being, you are not the mind. It's the mind which posed that question to you. You say, okay, mind, you have lost focus on the being. Good for you, do the work. I don't care, I am the being. Like Rupert said, it's instantaneously, effortlessly, choicelessly available to you. So 2 responses to that question. One is, it's not a problem. It's a problem only to the mind which says, oh, I got this wonderful knowledge, and I've lost touch with that knowledge. I'm now immersed in activities. And the mind will further say, this is all great, but in the middle of busy life, you can't hold. It's impossible. You can't hold on to it. Well, yes and no. In one sense, you can't keep thinking about it. In the second sense, you don't need to. You are it regardless. You can happily plunge into the busiest of activities without thinking, I have lost my non-dual being. When I come back to it, will it still be there? Of course. It was always there when we had not the least bit of interest in being, consciousness, in Vedanta. It was there, perfect as it is now. And will continue to be there. When you're busy, when you're not busy, when you're meditating with eyes closed, with eyes open, it will always be there. I still remember one master teaching this, and a monk saying, well, at least we need to hold on to that. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That knowledge, at least we need to hold on to it. And the master said, that's exactly what you should not hold on to. In Hindi, he said, to pakad ke rakhna hai na, Aham Brahmasmi. You should hold on to it, right? And the master said, wahi to nahi pakad ke rakhna hai, Mahatma ji. That's what you must not hold on to, O monk. Why? Because then you made it a business of the mind. Here is something cool, wonderful, thrilling. I must hold on to it. In the midst of all activities, driving, Aham Brahmasmi. Talking with the boss, yes, Aham Brahmasmi. No, absolutely not. That's strain. This is free of all strain. This is choicelessly, effortlessly available. So first of all, you don't need to. Second, if you say, yeah, but I need the benefit from it, it's instantaneously available to you. You can sink back into it instantaneously and see it's always there. It just requires half a second of, yes, of course. Right? And I always add an addendum. To get to this point of being at peace with being, a little bit of, yes, extra time and energy, like going to a retreat, like studying the books or listening to the talks, and giving it regular time to stay with it. Stay with it to your heart's content. This is what is called non-dual meditation, nididhyasana. Staying with it to your heart's content. Immerse yourself in it. Marinate in it. As long as you're, till the point you feel that, it's all right. It's always fine.
What you say, Swami, reminds me of something that Ashtavakra said. Some of you are probably aware of the Ashtavakra Gita, one of the kind of core texts of the Vedanta.
That's what we are doing in the mornings.
Is it? Okay,
yes.
All right. I wasn't here this morning, so that's good. Something he said, happiness belongs to that supremely lazy person for whom even blinking is too much trouble. Happiness is the recognition that happiness is the very nature of your being. It's not something you have to do. Even blinking requires more effort, takes up more energy than recognizing the awareness that is your nature. Because awareness it's what you are. Everything else is what we do. Even blinking is what we do. Thinking is what we do. Feeling is what we do. Acting, remembering, perceiving is what we do. But awareness is is what we are. We cannot do what we are, and we cannot be what we do. So this is why ultimately, that the highest meditation, highest form of meditation is not something we do. It's what we are. And if anything is required, it is simply just to soften the focus of your attention from the content of your experience. Like now, don't pay exclusive attention to what I'm saying. Keep part of your attention with yourself. Listen to what I'm saying, but don't give yourself away completely to what I'm saying. Remain as yourself. Remain with yourself. You can still listen to what I'm saying, or think, feel, remember, and so on, but don't let your experience take you away from yourself. I referred earlier to Atmananda Krishna Menon, a well-known teacher from the middle of the last century. Somebody once asked him, how do I know when I'm established in my true nature? And he said, when the thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions can no longer take you away from yourself. In other words, when you're just resting in your being, when you stay with your being, stay with a felt sense of being or being aware, you can still pay attention to experience. You can still engage fully in your experience, but your experience loses its capacity to take you away from yourself. You just remain with yourself. It's like a kind of remembrance, but it's not a remembering of an experience. It's a self-remembrance. It's this deep felt remembrance of who you essentially are. And more and more, the more you remain with yourself, it doesn't really get stronger. It always shines with the same light, but it feels as if it gets stronger and brighter. Experience progressively loses its capacity to obscure it or veil it or to take you away from it. And in the end, you just feel established in this peace. Experience has lost its capacity to take you away from the peace of your true nature. You feel you live there. It's not a place you visit from time to time. To begin with, it's a place you visit from time to time. But more and more, this is where I live. This is where I'm grounded. It's where I'm centered all the time.
Can I just add something to just in support of what he said? It reminds me of the Kena Upanishad, where it says full enlightenment, pratibodha viditam matam, just a short phrase. In every experience when that is revealed, whatever the experience, that is full-blown enlightenment. Exactly as Rupert was saying, that experience is where I'm living, and the experience of the world, here itself, right now, without needing to fall back, step back, retreat into pure consciousness or being. This is the expression of pure consciousness or being. When that happens, that's full-blown enlightenment. And it's very dramatic because in the Kena Upanishad, from the beginning, it becomes more and more subtle, more and more abstract. What is that ultimate reality? It's not something that you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. It's not in the experiences of seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or touching or thinking or speaking. If you think you know it, then you do not know it. If you think you do not know it, then you know it. It becomes more and more abstract and more inward. And then there is this dramatic shift that in every experience of seeing and hearing and thinking and working and speaking, in breathing in and out, all the time, that one reality is being effortlessly revealed. That's full enlightenment.
So, Swamiji and Rupert, thank you very much for being here and answering our questions. My name is Lydia. I had a question which is sort of more directed towards you, Rupert, and one more for you, Swami. But I do feel that being sort of towards the back of the queue, I think they've kind of been answered a bit, but I'll just ask in case there's anything more to say. So, yeah, when Rupert, you were talking about the analogy of the dreamer and the dream, I had a question of, you know, what's the relationship between the experience of the dream character and the dreamer themselves? But from what's been said, I kind of feel now that, you know, when the dream character is experiencing joy that's seemingly based on something external, then actually it's just an experience of the true nature of the self. Is there anything else?
You're absolutely right. Even the just the common experience of happiness. I'm not talking about an extraordinary spiritual experience. Just the ordinary experience of happiness that everybody feels is a taste of their true nature. Happiness is what being tastes like. And there aren't different kinds of happiness. We know this. If you go through your life, the happiness you spent you felt as a 5-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and a 20-year-old, all these different instances of happiness, the actual experience itself is always the same experience, although it may have been precipitated or apparently caused by a different event in your life. When you were a 5-year-old, it was the ice cream you got on the beach. When you were a 10-year-old, it was the movie. When you were 50, and so on. So each instance of happiness, each experience of happiness seemed to have been caused by a different event, object, activity, or relationship. But the actual experience itself is always the same. It's always a taste of your true nature. Now, why do we believe that happiness is caused by external circumstances? It's a reasonable mistake to make. Because when we are feeling a sense of lack, which is inevitable if we feel that we are a temporary, finite, separate self, we feel a sense of lack, and we seek to relieve that sense of lack through the acquisition of an object, substance, activity, or relationship. And we do find that when we acquire the object, or the substance, the activity or relationship, we do experience happiness. And therefore we can be forgiven for thinking that it was the acquisition of the object, substance, etc., that caused the happiness. It's a reasonable mistake to make. So what's the relationship between the acquisition of the object, substance, activity, and so on, and the happiness you feel? It's that the it's the acquisition of the object, substance, activity, and so on, that brings the activity of seeking to an end. The activity of seeking is an activity of your mind. I want this, I need this, and your mind goes out looking for an object. When you get that object, by definition, the seeking activity of the mind ceases, because you now have what you want. And as the activity of the mind seeking ceases, your true nature of happiness shines. The mind then rises again and wrongly attributes the happiness you experience to the object acquired, and thinks, it was because I got that object, or that relationship, or that activity, that I felt happiness, and therefore I'm going to go out again. And the seeking inevitably arises again. And the mind thinks, okay, I'm going to go out. Last time I experienced that object, I felt happiness, therefore the object must be the cause of happiness. I'm going to go for it again. And sure enough, when you get that object, again, the seeking activity of the mind, which previously veiled your innate happiness, ceases, and your true nature of happiness shines. And this is how addiction develops. It's because the mind wrongly attributes the cause of happiness to the acquisition of the object. The happiness itself is causeless. It is your nature. It's not caused. But the seeking activity of your mind veiled it. So it required an object to bring that seeking activity to an end. And when the veiling activity of the mind ceased, then your true nature of happiness shines. Now, once you understand this, once you have understood it, as we did earlier with the experiment we did, once we've understood that happiness is the nature of your being, you no longer look for it in external circumstances. It doesn't mean that you cease having desires. This is very important. You still have desires, but your desires come from happiness. You don't desire something in order to find happiness. Your desires are a means of sharing your innate happiness in the world. So you may still have desires, but not for the purpose of finding happiness. But once you've discovered that happiness is your nature, you always know where to go for it. And if you ever find yourself seeking peace or happiness in an object again, you just pause. You know that it doesn't live there. You've discovered this direct path back to happiness in yourself, and you can go there whenever you want.
Thank you. And it's a very similar question.
Come a bit closer to the mic.
Oh, yeah, it's a very similar question, and you kind of touched on it already as well, Rupert. But earlier, when we were looking at chapter 15, verse 4 of the Ashtavakra Gita, it stated that you're not the doer or the enjoyer, but the indifferent witness. And I was thinking, surely you're the enjoyer, at least. Like, I can understand that maybe the body and the mind are the experiences of separation, but when it comes to joy, surely it's pure consciousness that's experiencing joy. But again, from what we've said just now, then I felt like, maybe in that verse it's saying you're not the enjoyer of the joy that comes from causality. It's the causeless joy that
You're right. One thing to know there is that a process has started in that verse. That's what Rupert calls the inward path. So you're not the body, not the mind, and since if I'm not the body, then I cannot be the doer of actions. If I'm not the mind, then I cannot be the enjoyer or the sufferer of pleasures and pains. I am just the bare awareness. But then the process will be completed tomorrow. And then we will look back and see, yes, other than this one consciousness, there is no enjoyer or no sufferer. It is because of this consciousness that I can enjoy even worldly pleasures and I can suffer. There is only this one consciousness. There's nothing else. But in itself, by itself, without the imposition, without the false identification with the body-mind, where it forgets itself and looks at itself as the body-mind, and then it sees itself as the doer of stuff and the enjoyer or the sufferer of the results of that karma. As you put it very beautifully, the causal pleasures and pains. I do this and I get this, and sometimes I do something wrong and I get a kickback. I suffer. That is as in your language, the causal pleasures and pains. One rises above that and realizes, I am the one consciousness or one being beyond causality, and therefore beyond doership and enjoyership or sufferership. Yes, and yet all the time remembering, even our experiences of doing stuff, enjoying stuff, suffering stuff, all of that is only because I am that being, I am that consciousness. It is the screen which enables the horror movie too and the comedy too. But the screen itself is untouched. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have to wrap it up.
I think.
Yes, 5 minutes. Done. Okay. We can just ask the question maybe.
Okay. I do apologize. It's a slightly convoluted philosophical question on non-duality. So we're all one. We're all Brahman in different forms, all from the same source, and the idea of separateness is an illusion. But there is a duality I can't seem to shake, which is that there is a right and a wrong, and there is a good and a bad, and we all seem to strive to do right and do good. And I think you wouldn't be here today if you weren't here to do right and do good. So I suppose the question is, what is Brahman playing at? Because some people do bad and some people do wrong. We're all Brahma, bear in mind. And some people can't even help the fact that they do bad and that they're wrong. Some people aren't even aware of it. And there is immense suffering in the world, and some people have to suffer greatly and some don't, but we are all one. And then just lastly onto that is the question of karma. So surely if we are all one, then my karma is your karma. In fact, my karma is everyone's karma, because it's Brahman's karma. Whether someone does something bad over there or someone does something good over there, it's all Brahman doing bad and doing good. So doesn't that render the meaning of karma meaningless in the sense that we understand it, or at least in the sense I understand it? Sorry that this is the last question, it's just, I'm a really annoying philosopher, so yeah, that's all I wanted to ask and clear up.
Well, because you're philosophically trained, I'll give a more cryptic answer. You'll have to take it apart yourself. The claim from Vedanta is that not that Vedanta or Brahman is neutral with regard to ethics. In fact, the claim is very strong that all ethics can truly be grounded in Brahman. It is because we are that one existence consciousness place, that oneness of all existence. From that flows ethics. Why love? Why non-violence? Why protect and cherish everybody? Why treat the other as oneself? So the ground of ethics is actually Brahman. Yes. And what good does this do to Vedanta? Well, it is through that ethical path that we go to Brahman, to the enlightenment. The non-ethical path leads to suffering and thereby pushes us back into the ethical path. So all of it actually comes together. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Ram
We
is
should probably
coming back. Yes. Peace chant, yes. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Namastu.
Thank you, both of you, Swamiji, Rupert. What a real treat, isn't it, to have these two amongst us. It really is a unique moment. It's never happened before. And to have it here on this stage today, we can't thank you enough. Thank you.